Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Yve Bowen. She is a transformational mindset coach, and we'll learn from her about how limiting beliefs can keep us stuck and how to break free. We'll learn about self-awareness, intuition, and self-forgiveness, and how all this can help us achieve our goals through which we once thought were impossible. Welcome to the show, Yve.
Hi, thanks for having me, AJ. Happy to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Eve. And I'm sure not
Hi,
just in India.
India.
And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from
Of
what we are going to
course.
talk right now. We'll talk about how one can break free from limiting beliefs. We'll learn all that from you. But before that, let's learn a bit about your journey, your background, so that people know who they are listening to.
Yeah, so as AJ said, I'm a transformational coach and limiting belief specialist. At my coaching practice, You Deserve a Life You Love. And it's called You Deserve a Life You Love because my early background and for most of my early adult life, I was someone who didn't love herself. I would call it self-loathing, self-attack, because I didn't feel like fit in. I didn't feel like I belonged, even in my family. Everywhere I went, I just thought, this whole world feels alien to me. I don't understand it. It makes no sense. And so for most of my life, I would internalize that self-hatred, that self-attack, and sabotage myself whenever I tried to achieve something in my relationships with my partners. If I got anywhere, I would turn it around and try somehow to sabotage the achievement. I made life very difficult for myself. And I also suffered from a lot of depression. Um, and so diving deep on my spiritual journey, cultivating mindfulness, self-love, self-awareness, self-forgiveness, understanding the things that made me me, that weren't dependent on other people or other people's opinion, was my journey from that level of self-hatred to now where it's unshakable self-love. There's nothing that can make me doubt myself or not love myself anymore.
Absolutely, absolutely, Eve. To understand this better,
Mhm.
now one can understand self-limiting belief. Everyone thinks that they have limitation. It can be good, it
Mhm.
cannot be so good also. But that is it. But how
Mhm.
does it turn into, self-destruction in that sense? To do harm to oneself means one may
Mhm.
not want to achieve something, but how does it lead to, doing things that are, self-sabotage? How does these things work? Can you give us some examples so that we can understand, okay, this is what we have, this is how it get triggered, this is what the outcome is, so that people know about these things, but I want to understand it much more from the ground for the audience.
Absolutely. So, an example would be somebody who has a goal to generate more income in their business or seek a promotion, and they don't think they're worthy of that goal. And they're not aware that that is the subconscious belief that's running them. So, they might not even think of, they see a job and they're perfectly capable of doing it, but something inside of them that they're not aware of tells them, you can't do it. You're not good enough. You're not worthy of that kind of success. And they're not aware of it. And so they'll do something either in the interview, if it's for a career promotion, or in the lead up to the interview, some accident will happen or something will happen to set them off course so that when they go into that interview, they're not present with themselves. Or if they're an entrepreneur and they want to attract clients or customers and they believe that rising above a certain level of income subconsciously is wrong because money is evil, money is bad. It's not, only corrupt people are rich. They are not going to do and take the actions needed and necessary and feel confident about themselves in order to attract those clients, to take the steps, to do the marketing, to do the work that needs to be done in order for them to achieve that goal. And they may end up with clients that they don't like working with, who don't like paying them, just so they can stay at the level of income they're at. Those are some very basic, simple examples.
What about relationships? Means how does it
Mm.
work? How was it working for you? What are some of the things that can happen?
Well, I have to give you a personal experience. So I was in a very violent relationship, and when I was in my teens up to the age of 24. And that's because I grew up in an environment where violence towards my mother was the norm. Now, I appeared very confident, very strong, very independent, even as a teen. But subconsciously, I attracted a man like my father. I wasn't even aware that's what it was until after I got out of it. And so when he started to be aggressive towards me, rather than me walking away straight away, I rationalized it because it was familiar to me, but this wasn't a conscious thought. This was a subconscious acceptance of this is what relationships look like. You tend to attract what you think you're worthy of, what you think relationships are meant to be like, what feels familiar and comfortable to you. And that's an extreme version, but you can also be someone who believes men aren't or women aren't trustworthy. So you'll attract people who cheat, you know, or you can't open up and be vulnerable because your subconscious belief is vulnerability is weak, and opening up will lead to you getting hurt. And so you put up blocks in your relationships. All these scripts are running in the background of your subconscious mind. And until you become aware of them, you'll keep repeating that pattern.
Absolutely. So how do these limiting beliefs, how do are they formed? Is it just because somebody tells us something, it becomes limiting? Is it with genetics? Is it in our DNA? How does that work?
I think it's a combination of everything. We come into this world uh, like a blueprint. We're blank. We have no real limiting beliefs when we're born. But there may also, if you believe in ancestral uh, DNA, you may also bring in the energy of the ancestors that you've come for a lesson to learn. But we'll put that aside and make it more practical. That you're born into a family that has rules, that have parents who have ideas about society, about life, about religion, about culture, what's right, what's wrong, and they pass them down to their children. Then you have the actual culture of your society that tells you what's right, what's wrong. For example, in India, you have a different idea about what freedom looks like to say somebody who grew up in Russia or somebody who grew up in America. You're imprinted with these blueprints, and they may not be your blueprints, but you absorb them, you take them on, you take on the positives, you take on the negatives. And it's only until you're trying to achieve something that maybe go against what your parents wanted, or your peers approve of, or what your culture says is right, that you're coming up against this programming that you didn't know was going to impact you and stop you from achieving your goal. It's a multitude of factors that all come together. And the only way to start to break free from those is to begin to look at yourself, become more self aware, more self forgiving. And self forgiving is really important because we tend to judge ourselves when we go against what we've been told is right. So, those are some of the ways it can come up.
Right, right. So self-limiting beliefs, aren't they also practical? They tell them that okay, these are the things which you should do. Rest of the things you need to do with certain, certain precautions. Those are the things and then you prepare accordingly. Accordingly, you do that. If I have to learn swimming, or if I have to learn swimming in an ocean or a river, first I need to be prepared to swim within a system which is protected, where there is a bit of
Mhm.
coaching. Then I can look at a bigger pool. Then ocean is still far, far away. If say someone says, "Do not limit yourself," and I jump straightway into the ocean, I will drown. So that limiting belief is actually, it's wisdom. It's the wisdom from even from our own self or from anyone practical. I want to understand from that, why should we consider that all limiting beliefs are bad?
Well, first of all, AJ, I don't want you to drown, so I hope you do get a coach. There's a difference between conscious beliefs and subconscious beliefs. So a conscious belief about swimming might be, I can't swim. Therefore, it would be foolhardy of me to get into the water without learning to swim first. I'm very aware of that belief. It's in my conscious mind. A subconscious belief might be, people from our culture don't swim. And so even when you think, I want to learn to swim, there's some internal struggle going on within you, like, oh, I don't know if this is for me. But you're not aware that that's what's stopping you from going to take the swimming lessons. The difference between limiting beliefs that are practical and conscious is like the things we teach children to be safe. Don't touch the stove because you will get burnt. It's very different from a limiting belief, which is based on programming and stories and identities and things that people have told you should be doing that go against what you need to be doing. So that's why it's called a limiting belief as opposed to just a belief.
Absolutely. So, how does one get started with this? Means I can have limiting belief about my capability. I can have limiting belief about my worthiness to achieve anything. How do I then get started? Is there a way? I cannot go back to my old childhood. I cannot go back to my ancestors if they felt a certain way. I can only do whenever I realize, and I can do what is in the present. So, how do you get people started with this as a transformational mindset coach?
Well, with clients that will come to me, for example, but that's a brilliant question. I had a client who was really stuck in her business, and she was thriving in certain ways, but in other ways she was struggling. So for example, the money aspect, that she felt like she couldn't charge more for her work, even though she was highly qualified, highly certified, and kept taking more and more courses. And through me working with her to say, have you noticed when you talk about money, you tend to tense up? Have you noticed that when you talk about money, you use certain language? And she hadn't noticed. So my job is to cultivate awareness in her. So the first thing people can do is begin to cultivate an awareness of themselves, to investigate. This is why you need self-awareness, self-love, and self-forgiveness. Because if you don't have that triad, you are not going to look at certain beliefs that make you feel uncomfortable. You don't want to look at I'm not worthy because it might remind you of a memory that you don't want to look at. You might not want to look at things that are blocking you because it might bring up emotions that you feel uncomfortable feeling. But if you love yourself, if you forgive yourself, if you're compassionate with yourself, you allow those emotions to come up in a way where you don't judge yourself. And you say, oh, that makes perfect sense. Now that's logical to me. And as you start to say, oh, that's logical to me, which is what happened with that client, what transpired was she had a belief that if she stopped herself becoming too successful, she could punish her mother because her mother and her had a very difficult relationship. And so if she kept not achieving what she could achieve, she could keep going back to that belief about her mother. You'll ruin my life. You made my life really difficult. You're the problem. She wasn't aware of that. But through investigation and awareness, she began to see, yeah, actually, the reason I'm not allowing myself to earn more is because it allows me to keep punishing my mother. And so this is how deep and layered it can go. So the first step is to say, I am just willing to be curious about what beliefs I might have. And how it will indicate itself to most people is they'll feel a knot in their gut, they'll feel palpitations in their heart, they'll feel something in their body that says, ugh, it's like a resistance when they try to do something. So you start to notice and analyze and look at yourself in the most loving, gentle, most compassionate way. Go, I wonder what that is. You know, intuition, what do you show me what that is? And you don't even have to believe in intuition. You just have to be willing and curious. And you'll start to feel maybe a memory come up. And you start to investigate that memory with compassion and with awareness and with self-love.
Absolutely, Eve. So once someone does a course, does it mean that it's like a cure? That thing will never happen? or is it a continuous journey for an individual who has whatever limiting belief? Everyone, I guess, has some limitations or the other in one
Absolutely.
aspect or
Yeah, it depends on the belief. Some things can shift in that person once they've had that identification. So we continue with the example of the person that I was speaking about. And what happened was, because she explored those beliefs and we did work around where those thoughts came from and her beliefs about her mother, because she engaged in that self-compassion and started to view her mother in a new light, her relationship with her mother improved, and they actually have a better relationship now. But if she goes past the point, say she wanted to earn, I don't know, 60 grand a year, and then she decided she wants to earn 100 grand a year, then that trigger might come again. She might have to look at this new plateau, might not be about her mother this time, but is it good to earn this much money? Maybe I won't be able to help as many clients who don't have that money. How do I feel about that? So at each and every level of our growth, and every plateau that we reach, we may then have to then look at, oh, I'm still feeling a tension here. What's that about? There's an inner conflict going on here. What's that about? So it depends on the belief. Some can be wiped out just by recognition, and others at every level that you're growing and stepping into a new level, you're going to have to look at it and do the work with it.
absolutely, absolutely. So you talk about self-forgiveness, an important factor for
Mhm.
all these things. Now,
Mm.
a lot of people are ready to forgive themselves. Nowadays, people talk a lot about it. But then in that whole process, that sense of accountability is gone. And that creates a lot of
Love that.
problem. And you can forgive yourself, but the world will never forget that you are non-accountable for your behavior, your action, and that you are happy, but your actions have not left them happy, either in workplace or in your relationships.
I
How should
love your
one look at
question.
these two parts?
You forgot that it's a triad. It's self-love, self-awareness, and self-forgiveness. So without self-awareness, self-forgiveness isn't real anyway. You're not Self-awareness allows you to look at your actions with a clear eye. You're not judging yourself, so you're willing to say, yes, I did that. I take ownership for that. That is true. But it also applies self-forgiveness to when you've been wronged, not just when you're being the one doing the injury, the emotional, physical, psychological injury. If you're the one that's been wronged, you often internalize what has been done to you and blame yourself. I caused it. Maybe I should have acted differently. I deserved it. That's where self-forgiveness happens, and self-awareness also. Did that come because I'm a bad person, or did that come because the other person inflicted that on me? Either way, self forgiveness is important in order to allow you to forgive yourself. They must be a triad. You must work with them together.
So does the person should the person try and ask for others forgiveness first in terms of when you get that enough self-awareness and forgive yourself first, you forgive yourself, and then you see if it is possible to ask for, say, sorry if it is required.
It depends on the person and it depends on the situation. Where I come from is all forgiveness is self forgiveness. There's no other forgiveness. So all forgiveness is self-forgiveness because you are forgiving your perception, your misperceptions, your misidentifications, your self-judgment, your self-attack. That is what it's about. So if someone has done something heinous to you and you're carrying that burden around, as it's not allowing you to move on because you're so stuck in the trauma of that, you require self-forgiveness first before you can even think about that. If you're the person who committed the heinous act, in order to be able to ask for from someone else, forgive yourself first. And you forgive yourself first by going, this set of circumstances, this childhood, this awareness, these things, these events are what caused me to act out in that way. If I was in my right rational mind and had been brought up in a loving environment, this would not have happened. So if I forgive myself first, I can then go to others and ask for their forgiveness if that's what you need. But even if they don't forgive me, forgive me, I'm going to keep growing in awareness and doing better for myself. It doesn't matter if they forgive me or not, because if it requires other people to forgive you and they don't, where are you? You're stuck. So it's really
Absolutely.
important to cultivate self-forgiveness on multiple levels, but along with self-awareness and self-love.
Absolutely. There's much to learn and understand about these things from you, Eve. And I'm
Hmm.
sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn
Sure.
about self limiting beliefs, and also would perhaps want to be your client so that they
Yes.
can come out of all these things. So, what's the best way for them to do so?
You can find me at my website. It's called youdeservealifeyoulove.com. You can either sign up to have a free discovery session with me to see if we can work together, or you can dive in and book a limiting belief buster session, which is an intensive 60-minute coaching session where we look at a specific limiting belief that might be stopping you from achieving your goal. And you can also, for uh, masterclass listeners, you can have a discount code of 20% off of that, which is all in caps LBB promo and the number 20. So LBB 20, LBB promo 20. So either way, if you just want to come, there's free resources on the website where you can dive into that, where I talk more about these things. There's videos, there's meditations, there's lots of resources there for you that you don't have to pay for anything, and you'll still get lots of information.
Absolutely. And thank you for that promo code. Uh, with this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me, AJ. It's been a pleasure.